WestJet shares rose more than 4% today after the carrier announced better than expected profit, a dividend hike, and a potential 5% stock buyback. It also confirmed it will launch a regional airline by 2013. The expansion into the short-haul market will pit it directly against Air Canada, but give it access to a $2 billion market. Gregg Saretsky is the president and CEO of WestJet Airlines. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So things, in terms of how airlines are kind of a canary in the coal mine for the economy, seem to be looking fairly robust. Can you characterize sort of how the travel patterns are for you right now?
Well, demand through the end of the year was very strong, and we're seeing a continuation of that through January and the early returns for February and March as well.
Greg, I have to ask you this question every time we talk. When are you getting in business class so I can start using your airline?
Well, I can say the same thing I've said in the past. It's under evaluation, and we've been talking a little bit about premium seating, and more to come perhaps at the end of next quarter.
And let's talk about the regional airline, which I guess Kevin's definitely not getting on. What's the market that you're going after? How risky is it to make this kind of sizable investment at this time?
Well, it's a $2.1 billion segment that is for the most part served in a monopoly fashion with very high rents. Airfares that are very high, about 30 cities in Canada and several on the trans-border, and those look to be very attractive to WestJet, our brand, and our great guest experience.
I want to ask you, talking about experience, I travel sometimes as much as 4 times a week, sometimes privately, sometimes in commercial aircraft. The security and the process of clearing the airport here in Toronto and many destination cities in the U.S. and in Canada is not getting better, it's getting worse. To what extent do you as an airline who have to use this service, and it's part of the experience I as a traveler have to go through, do you get involved in trying to streamline it? Do you do anything to try and help? Do you have any communication with the government on this?
I share your pain. It does take a lot of the fun out of travel, and as an airline that's concerned with the beginning to end experience, that's part of that. It just isn't getting any easier. And yes, we are meeting with government officials, with Garda and CATSA, and talking about how do we streamline, how do we make this clearance something that is harmonized across both sides of the border, because depending on where you're traveling, the security clearances are a little bit different.
I want to talk to you when you talk about the regional airline and the potential there. You're going head-to-head with Air Canada. Air Canada is not afraid to get pretty aggressive on the pricing front. So what are you willing to do on a margin basis in order to fill seats? There's already Porter flying in this space. Jazz is now really being aggressive. I don't know the internal numbers, but pretty clearly going after that space. You're going to be a third. Is there room for all three of you?
Well, I think so. I think that question was asked in 1996 when WestJet first started getting going, and Air Canada and Canadian were going at each other. And the answer is, when airfares come down, as we expect to bring airfares down in all of these communities, we'll see a dramatic increase, a stimulation, if you will, in demand, and there'll be enough for all of us. And in the end, WestJet's regional operation will have the lowest costs, and that gives us the best chance for survival.
Why is it you have the lowest costs? Is it the lack of unions?
No, 8,600 WestJetters is very proud today to be starting, something that those who weren't around in 1996 missed. But we're highly productive, highly efficient, a single fleet. Our regional operation will have a lot of the same characteristics, and quick turns and making good use of the cabin configuration. So I think a lot of ingredients there that contribute to the success we've enjoyed, and that the regional will as well.
So these short-haul flights and the regional flights, what equipment are you going to be using?
We have today issued a request for proposal for Bombardier Q400s and ATR's 72-600 series aircraft. So the competition has started, and we'll see how that all nets out.
So those are prop jobs, right?
They are. Our average stage length is going to be somewhere between 300 and 350 miles, which is about an hour in duration. So markets that are not dense enough to support jet service, but for which these aircraft are perfectly suited.
And so some would say that this is a bit of a departure from your current business strategy, the business strategy that's been working extremely well. How do you answer that?
Well, I agree the strategy has been working well, and that's why we're going to replicate it. We're going to have a separate airline on a separate operating certificate owned by the same parent that owns WestJet, and it will be a single fleet with a highly productive workforce doing exactly what WestJet did 16 years ago. So we're going to replicate that success in the regional space.
What is the financing market like for aircraft these days? Is it loosened up? Is it competitive? Is it very easy for you to finance these aircraft?
Well, I think companies that have strong balance sheets haven't had problems getting access to financing, and we expect that we won't have any problem financing, but the market itself is actually getting a little bit tougher.
I want to talk about fuel costs. Obviously, it's one of the major components for you guys. With this whole move to single pricing, single listed pricing, you move away from the notion of the surcharge, disassociating yourself from one of these big costs in your business. A, how do you think fuel costs are going to be an influence on your profitability in the year ahead? And B, are you worried about consumers now just considering it, as maybe they should, a cost of business for you?
Well, fuel had a huge rise up in 2011. Our fuel bill was about $170 million more than we anticipated it would be. We took fare increases to offset the cost of rising energy. And as we think about the regional space, hopefully the cost of energy appears to be somewhat stabilizing. We remain hopeful. But the market continues to be very robust. And to the extent that we need to continue to raise fares to offset that rising cost of energy, we'll do so.
All right. Well, it's great to have you with us, Greg. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Amanda.
Gregg Saretsky is President and CEO of WestJet Airlines.